Rene Descartes was born on March 31st, 1596 in La Haye, France. Born into a well-to-do family, Descartes was one of 3 children. In 1606, Descartes was sent to La Fèche, the Jesuit school in Nîmes. He spent 9 years here, and during that time he perfected his Latin, studied humanities, philosophy, mathematics, and was introduced to a new development in astronomy.
More to Descartes than that. In ascending order of importance, he never got up before midday. He laid the basis for modern thinking on any subject for the next 400 years, and he worked out most of his theories while sitting in an oven. To work out his ideas, he found it essential to spend most of his life in Holland, though he was born in the French town of La Haye in 1596 into the lower ranks of the nobility. His mother died when he was a year old, and his father remarried when he was 3. Then he went to a school run by Jesuit priests, and it was already clear he was quite unusual. He had a constant cough and managed to convince the authorities he was so ill he couldn't possibly get out of bed before 11. Which sounds like a modern student attitude. Like when you meet one and they say, oh, I'm like really stressed because I've got like hand in this 5,000-word essay like tomorrow morning, I haven't even started yet. Then you go, blimey, that's a bit rough. When did they give you that to do? And they go, oh, a year ago in November.
This time he realized his love for mathematics. He said that with the exception of math, he had learned nothing that was absolutely true. In 1614, Descartes moved to the outskirts of Paris, where he shut himself off from the world, and in 1616 he earned his law degree, although law didn't interest him. That's when he joined the military. In the military, he met Dutch philosopher Isaac Brackham, who rekindled Descartes' interest in math and science through their discussions. A few years later, he left the military, but not before having a dream that would change his life. On November 10, 1619, in a stove-heated room, Descartes had an amazing experience. In a state of delirium, he had 3 dreams that convinced Descartes of his mission to find a new philosophical system, one that would connect all sciences through a chain of mathematical logic. Almost 10 years later, after those dreams, Descartes retired to Holland, where he spent the next 20 years to his studies. In that time, he wrote many books, one of those being Le Monde, meaning of the world.
Descartes was aware that for the purposes of everyday life he had to accept that things were true, but he laid out a theory that nothing should be accepted unless subject to scrutiny. Now laws, governments, the Bible were open to question.
For 20 years he traveled a lot, one place being Amsterdam, where he formed a relationship with a woman named Helene, who bore him a daughter. However, his daughter died in 1614 of scarlet fever. 9 years later, he accepted an invitation to tutor Queen Christine of Sweden. The Queen insisted he meet her at 5 in the morning every day. The lessons began in mid-January 1615, but the cold weather and early hours took a toll on Descartes. On February 1st, he contracted pneumonia but refused to see a doctor. He died in Stockholm on February 11, 1650. Descartes' greatest contribution was his placement of geometry within the domain of algebra. This allowed mathematicians to study curves and figures through the analysis of algebraic equations. He laid the foundations for analytic geometry. Descartes also introduced familiar alphabetical symbols like x, y, and z for unknown quantities, as well as the subscriptors for the power of a variable. An example would be x squared. He also developed the Cartan coordinate system, which is just coordinate geometry. His work gave a tremendous push towards modern science and math.
A huge step in the quest for reason, for working out why a stone falls or medicine heals, and not assuming that it's down to God's will or positive auras or Saturn rising behind Venus. But he was also the first to base a philosophy around subjecting every idea to scrutiny, which is still hard today. When enough people in authority tell you that a dictator is planning to invade us or that a madman on the underground had to be shot because he jumped over a barrier, it's very difficult to say, I'm not going to believe that until I've seen the evidence. If Descartes was around today, I think that the first thing he would say would be, look, if you're convinced that you shouldn't get up before midday and somebody tries to persuade you to do otherwise, then don't.
I'm going to be doing a rainbow experiment. Descartes was the first to have an explanation for rainbows, and he discovered the laws of refraction with rainbows. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill this cup with water, all the way or mostly, and then we put tape on this flashlight so there's only a slit, which is masking tape, it's not anything. So then we got white paper, and we're going to put the cup right next to there and lift it up. And after a couple of times, try and refract the light to make a rainbow. There's a tiny one right there on the counter. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. And there we go. We have a rainbow.